For almost 100 years, Route 66 has been the road of adventure here in the United States. It's connected the past with the present. On my latest ride, I traveled to a little town called Warwick, Oklahoma. It lies partway between Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and there I found a real jewel of a treasure, and that was the Seaba Station Motorcycle Museum. For anyone that spent a lifetime around motorcycles, this place is like stepping back in time. But walking into that old gas station, I saw motorcycles I remembered from my youth. I saw motorcycles I'd only read about, and I saw motorcycles that reminded me of trips I'd totally forgotten about. For many of us, that first taste of freedom came from riding a small dirt bike. Could have been one of the old Rupp 125s tearing through somebody's backyard. Could have been a Hodaka Wombat, where we felt like kings of the trail. Any number of little motorcycles probably got us started. Later, John Penton, who just died at the age of 100, brought in the European style of enduro bikes and changed motorcycling in the United States forever. I can remember riding a friend's Penton 400. I couldn't keep the front end on the ground. That bike had so much power and wanted to go so fast, it was a real scream to ride, but I loved riding those kind of bikes. Seeing these bikes side by side reminded me of just how quickly our world grew on two wheels. Back in the 50s and 60s, brands like BSA were the largest manufacturers in the world. Velocet made hand-built motorcycles with care and innovation, and marks like AJS and Matchless filled the racetracks with speed and thunder. And of course, Royal Enfield, still alive today, but at this museum you can see the originals. These were the machines that carried the thump of British motorcycles around the world. Even smaller makes like James had their place too, because it allowed younger riders to get into the sport. Every corner of this museum holds a surprise. Aermacchi from Italy built motorcycles that even had Harley-Davidson names on them at one time. DKW, once the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. They set the standard for two-strokes. And then there was the Terret police bike. Can you imagine patrolling the streets of Paris on one of these? Nimbus from Denmark with their inline fours and their exposed valve springs. Quirky, but brilliant. And then of course there was Hercules. They were the first manufacturer to try to stuff a rotary engine in a motorcycle. And for something completely different, here's the Hydra bike, made for the Captain America movie series. These are not just motorcycles. They're experiments, they're innovations, they're bold thinking that kept our motorcycle industry growing. For those who start in the dirt, the museum is a time machine. Husqvarna, the bike that Steve McQueen made famous, and one that I lusted after for years and years, but never could afford. Then there was Mako and CZ, with their brutal power and rugged build. They helped shape the sport in Europe and America. I remember seeing a 501 Mako at our local riding spot back in the late 60s, and just could not believe the power of that motorcycle. Then there was Montesa for Spain. They excelled in trials riding even before most of us knew what trials riding was. And Gilera from Italy, a Grand Prix champion back in the 50s when all we thought about were British bikes being the fastest motorcycles around. And then there's Excelsior Henderson, once a giant in the motorcycle industry, standing shoulder to shoulder with Indian and Harley-Davidson. Briefly, they tried to revive it in the 1990s, but it's still a representation of what America could do with motorcycles. Seeing it here is a reminder that motorcycling in this country has always been about thinking big, even when the odds were long. And as I walked through Seaba Station, I realized something. These are more than steel and rubber. They're milestones. Each one marks a moment in time for the riders that bought them new, for the families that traveled on them, and for our senior riders, they stir up more than memories. They remind us of why we ride and why we still ride. So if you find yourself on Route 66, don't drive by Warwick. Take your time, stop at this museum. I can promise you it'll be worth your time. Walk among the machines. Let the memories roll in. And maybe, like me, you'll rediscover part of your motorcycling story. What was your first motorcycle? Drop a note in the comments below and let me know. Mine was a 1968.5 Honda 175 Scrambler. I'd love to hear the stories from fellow riders and how you keep this sport alive and why you continue to ride. So let's keep riding for as long as we can. I told you that I would end each of these videos with a story from the road. So since we're talking about basically the 50s and 60s here, I'll give you one from the late 60s. A bunch of us were out at our Sunday riding point. Big hill climb. None of us could make that particular hill climb. All the two-strokes were there. They went screaming up the hill. They'd flip and roll over and crash, roll back down the hill and try it again. And very few people were making it. So a little while later, this man rolls up on a BSA 441 Victor with his son on the back. His son hops off. He looks at the hill, eases the clutch out, and basically tractored up that hill. We had no idea how easy that bike went up that hill. We all kind of looked at each other in disgust, said, well, that's it for the day, and we took off and went home. That just ruined our egos for that particular day. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Please leave any comments below, and I'll get back to you on those. Thanks again.